Mara adjusted the small digital tablet in her hands, eyes scanning the faint flicker of data cascading across its surface. The dim hum of the colony's generator filled the cramped room, a constant background noise on Outpost Epsilon 7, a distant mining station perched precariously on the edge of the Cygnus Rift. Outside the reinforced windows, streaks of distant stars dotted the black void, indifferent to the lives contained within the metal walls. Her thoughts, however, were far from the stars. They lingered on the small comforts of home, on Earth, and on the strange, uneasy feeling that had settled in her chest since the mining expedition shifted its routine a week ago. She was alone at the terminal, late into the colony's night cycle, tapping code to finish a diagnostic patch on the station's aging software. The colony's systems were a patchwork of outdated tech and improvised fixes, a metaphor for the entire operation. Epsilon 7 was a forgotten speck in the galaxy, inhabited by those who had chosen exile, adventure, or punishment. Mara had come for the adventure. Or so she told herself. Suddenly, the faint vibration beneath her feet rippled with an intensity that did not belong to the mining drills or generator hum. It was too rhythmic, too controlled. A sharp pulse of light flared through the window, washing the room in unnatural hues, deep blues and violet, colors that no star should emit. Before she could react, a wave of vertigo crashed over her. The walls seemed to dissolve into streaks of color and sound, and then a cold silence pressed against her eardrums. Mara's hands fell away from the tablet as her body felt lifted, pulled beyond the limits of gravity and reason. Panic surged, but her mind seized on one immutable fact: she was no longer on the station. Her eyes opened to unfamiliar surroundings, a room neither cramped nor cold but vast and sterile, lined with gleaming surfaces that reflected an eerie, pale light. No windows. No recognizable machinery. The air smelled faintly metallic, yet somehow sterile, lacking the comforting grit of Outpost Epsilon 7. Mara sat up abruptly, muscles taut, heart hammering. Her mind raced. Had she been abducted? But by whom? The galaxy was crowded with factions, empires, pirates, and traitors, but none had ever targeted a lone human like her. She ran her hands through her tangled hair, trying to focus. A soft chime sounded, and from the shadowed recesses of the room, a figure emerged. It was tall, far taller than any human, and slender, with skin that shimmered faintly under the ambient light. Its eyes, large and almond-shaped, held a depth of knowledge that unsettled Mara. The figure's movements were deliberate, calm, almost ritualistic. "I am Captain Kael'vra," the being intoned in a voice both melodic and resonant, yet translated perfectly into her mind. "You are aboard the Erebus, flagship of the Galactic Empire fleet. You are not here by accident." Mara swallowed hard. Galactic Empire. The name alone conjured a galaxy-wide behemoth, a military-industrial colossus ruled by a council of alien dynasties, obsessed with order, control, and expansion. She had heard the rumors: cruel enforcers, ruthless conquerors, but none had expected the Empire to make a direct move on an insignificant mining outpost. Why am I here?" she demanded, voice steady despite the whirlwind in her chest. Captain Kael'vra's expression was unreadable. "Your species is of interest. The Empire seeks to understand Earth's technological developments, your biology, and your capacity for adaptation." Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. Interest was a polite word for experimentation or worse. Yet beneath the cold formality, she sensed arrogance, the assumption that humans were primitive, manageable. The door at the far end of the room hissed open, revealing more figures, a crew unlike any Mara had seen. One was reptilian, with scaled skin that glimmered jade. Another bore multiple eyes, arranged symmetrically across a broad face. A third was clad in armor etched with cryptic symbols, its form hulking and imposing. Mara's eyes darted from one to the next. They did not speak but regarded her with measured calculation. The weight of their gazes felt invasive. She was a curiosity, an anomaly. Her mind worked furiously. Escape seemed impossible. But surrender was not an option. "Where are you taking me?" she asked, testing her captors. "To the heart of the Empire," Kael'vra replied. "There, you will assist in bridging the divide between human ingenuity and the Empire's reach." Mara's eyes narrowed. "I'm no tool." "No one said you were." The reptilian stepped forward, voice gravelly and amused. "But you'll learn that cooperation is the path to survival." Survival. The word lingered in the air like a threat and a promise. Mara's gaze hardened. She had no intention of becoming a pawn. The ship's hum deepened as the Erebus accelerated through hyperspace. The crew showed her their world, corridors filled with flashing consoles, alien scripts glowing in holographic panels, and soldiers moving with disciplined precision. Every corner of the ship was a testament to the Empire's reach and efficiency. Mara's nights were restless. Her mind pieced together fragments of the ship's layout and the crew's hierarchy. Captain Kael'vra was the leader, but subtle glances and whispered exchanges among the officers hinted at rivalries beneath the polished surface. In the communal mess, Mara observed more. The reptilian officer, named HFY, showed unexpected humor, though tinged with menace. The multi-eyed diplomat, Yelvan, carried an aura of inscrutable calculation. Their interactions reminded Mara that this was not a monolith but a fragile constellation of ambitions. One evening, as the ship passed near the Lyrian belt, Mara was brought before the ship's council. The chamber was vast, domed, and lined with luminous pillars that pulsed faintly, a technology beyond her understanding. Kael'vra addressed the assembly. "This human is not merely a prisoner. She embodies a species that has resisted assimilation, yet offers potential. We will study her. We will test her." Mara stepped forward, voice clear and unwavering. "If you want cooperation, you'll find it's earned, not demanded." A murmur swept through the council. A challenge had been issued. The woman they had assumed fragile had fire. Back in her quarters, alone with the sterile glow of the Erebus systems, Mara allowed herself a brief moment of resolve. She was far from home, surrounded by unknown beings with unknowable intentions. But she was not broken. Not yet. She would learn their weaknesses. She would adapt. And one day, they would understand that humans were not the species to be taken lightly. Outside her window, the stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to a captive's awakening. The journey into the heart of the Galactic Empire had begun, but Mara's story was far from over. The days aboard the Erebus slipped by with a deceptive monotony, a carefully engineered rhythm designed to break spirits and enforce order. But Mara was no ordinary captive. Beneath her calm exterior, a tempest brewed, fueled by sharp observation and a growing understanding of the alien crew's intricacies. The Galactic Empire prided itself on uniformity, discipline, and control, yet it was precisely this rigidity that Mara began to unravel, one subtle contradiction at a time. The crew, for all their imposing presence, operated like a finely tuned mechanism, each species playing a predetermined role within the hierarchical order. Captain Kael'vra maintained a regal composure. His every word weighted with authority, yet his stoic mask concealed undercurrents of impatience. The reptilian officer HFY thrived on intimidation, his jagged teeth flashing when displeased, but Mara noted moments of unexpected levity when his guards slipped in private. Yelvan, the multi-eyed diplomat, remained inscrutable, eyes constantly shifting as if calculating probabilities and alliances beyond human comprehension. Mara quickly realized that communication was a battleground in itself. Their language was complex, layered with tonal inflections and unspoken cues that the ship's universal translator only partially rendered. Yet Mara's relentless curiosity bridged many gaps. She learned to read micro-expressions and body language, gleaning insights the Empire's own protocols overlooked. During meals in the mess hall, Mara observed an odd ritual. Each species consumed food tailored to their biology, but there was a strict hierarchy even in who sat where and spoke first. When Mara attempted to join conversations, often injecting dry humor or questions, the effect was immediate. Some crew members recoiled, their rigid mental frameworks shaken by her unpredictability. "Humor?" Yelvan once asked, brow furrowing as if struggling to decode a foreign virus. "It's how humans cope," Mara replied with a wry smile. "Or sometimes just how we keep sane." Her words lingered, unsettling the group. To them, emotional expression was a sign of weakness, a dangerous vulnerability. Mara's laughter was a small rebellion, a crack in the Empire's veneer of control. One evening, as the ship traversed the Ion Veil, a hazardous nebula where sensors faltered, Mara seized an opportunity. The Erebus power fluctuated, and the usual hum of machinery dipped into silence. In that moment, she quietly accessed a nearby terminal, her fingers moving deftly over an unfamiliar interface. Mrs. Ikra's footsteps approached, heavy and deliberate. "Curious," he murmured, eyes gleaming in the dim light. Mara didn't flinch. "I'm learning," she said simply. "Your technology isn't magic." The officer grunted, a sound that could have been approval or disdain. "Few have dared touch what they do not understand." "But understanding is the first step to control," Mara countered. That brief exchange sparked something unexpected, a grudging respect. From that night, SSZ Kra engaged her in technical debates, challenging her interpretations but also sharing fragments of the Empire's secrets. Meanwhile, Captain Kaelvra's patience began to fray. In private councils, he warned subordinates of the risk Mara posed. "Her mind is a weapon we must disarm," he insisted. "She unsettles our unity." Yet Mara's unpredictability spread. The crew found their routines disrupted by her questions and subtle provocations. She mocked the Empire's obsession with hierarchy, pointing out contradictions and hypocrisies with sharp wit. Her ability to adapt, to think laterally rather than linearly, confounded their expectations. The most startling moment came during a strategy briefing. The Erebus was tasked with infiltrating a rebel outpost rumored to harbor forbidden Terran technology. The Empire's officers debated tactics rigidly, emphasizing overwhelming force and strict protocols. Mara raised her hand hesitantly. "What if you don't need force? What if you use their assumptions against them?" The room fell silent. Kaelvra's gaze pierced her. "Explain." She described a plan that hinged on deception, exploiting the rebels' expectations of brutal Empire tactics. It was unconventional, risky, and utterly alien to their mindset. Yet the Council found merit in it, and reluctantly approved her involvement. That day, Mara became more than a prisoner. She was a consultant, an anomaly given grudging agency. Yet beneath the surface, tensions simmered. Some crew members viewed her as a dangerous disruption, a contaminant in their ordered world. Others were fascinated, their curiosity a fragile bridge. Mara also sent secret signals back toward Earth, using coded transmissions embedded in routine communications. She warned her people, humanity was no longer invisible, and the Empire's reach was both a threat and an opportunity. Through whispered rumors and intercepted chatter, her message spread beyond the Erebus, sowing seeds of resistance and hope. But Mara knew better than to trust hope alone. One night, alone in the observation deck, she gazed at the distant stars, each a sun to worlds unknown. She wondered if Earth still remembered her, if anyone was listening. Her thoughts were interrupted by the soft presence of Yelvan. "You defy us with your spirit," the diplomat said quietly. "It is unusual." Mara smiled faintly. "You think I'm dangerous because I'm unpredictable, because I don't fit your model." He regarded her with a flicker of admiration. "Perhaps that is our weakness." In that moment, Mara sensed a subtle shift, not only in the crew, but in the fate of the Erebus. The Empire's iron grip showed cracks, and a human woman, once a mere captive, was becoming its fault line. As the ship pressed onward toward unknown horizons, Mara steeled herself for the inevitable reckoning. Her survival depended not only on strength but on the chaos she could sow within the Empire's ordered ranks. The clash of cultures was no longer theoretical, it was imminent. And Mara, unpredictable and unyielding, was ready to tip the scales. The signal was barely a whisper, a faint pulse woven discreetly into the Erebus' constant data streams. Yet its meaning was unmistakable, a warning sent through the tangled web of galactic communications, a beacon flaring quietly toward Earth. Mara had taken the risk, encoding the message within the seemingly innocuous telemetry updates the ship regularly transmitted. It was a fragile lifeline, one tethered to hope and desperation alike. As the Erebus surged through the vast emptiness between star systems, the warning rippled outward, threading through Imperial surveillance nets and rebel information channels alike. On Earth, in shadowed command centers and secure listening posts, alarms blinked to life. The message spoke of the Empire's true intentions, of human captivity, exploitation, and a brewing storm that threatened the fragile peace. Back aboard the ship, Mara felt the shifting tides beneath her feet. The subtle undercurrents of suspicion grew more pronounced, Eyes once indifferent now lingered with wariness or outright hostility. The crew debated in hushed tones, their unity fracturing along fault lines Mara had carefully exposed. Captain Kael'vra's demeanor hardened. The elegance of his control gave way to sharp, calculated ruthlessness. "The human is a contagion," he warned his officers. "If left unchecked, she will unravel our mission." But not all shared his fear. Sesikra, the reptilian officer whose grudging respect for Mara had grown into something more complex, counseled caution. "She is dangerous, yes," he growled in one council meeting, "but also a key. We could harness her, turn her chaos into advantage." Yelvan remained inscrutable, yet even the diplomat's many eyes betrayed a flicker of concern. The balance of power aboard the Erebus teetered, and Mara's presence was the fulcrum. Aware that her position was precarious, Mara worked swiftly. She fanned the embers of dissent subtly, probing fractures in loyalty and planting seeds of doubt. Her conversations became more pointed, her questions more incisive. She spoke of Earth's advancements, not just technology, but resilience, unity born from diversity. She challenged the crew's assumptions about humans as weak or backward. A turning point came during a routine security briefing. An emergency alert blared through the corridors. A sabotage attempt had crippled critical systems in the ship's propulsion array. Suspicion immediately fell upon Mara. She was brought before the council, surrounded by grim faces. Kael'vra's voice cut through the chamber, cold and unyielding. "You endangered us all. Confess." Mara met his gaze steadily. "I did no such thing. But someone wants me silenced." The accusation, whether true or fabricated, exposed the fragile trust between the human and her captors. Officers whispered among themselves, alliances shifting like sand underfoot. Mara's captors found themselves at a crossroads, continue to suppress her, or attempt to control the unpredictable force she represented. In the following days, the ship was a crucible of tension. Security was tightened, patrols increased, and Mara was confined to quarters under constant watch. But the rebellion she had ignited was not so easily contained. Crew members who had once mocked or ignored her now sought secret meetings, drawn by the possibility that she was more than a prisoner, perhaps a leader. Mara, isolated yet undeterred, used the time to plan. She deciphered the patterns in the ship's security protocols, pieced together the vulnerabilities she had glimpsed before. Her mind, sharp and relentless, wove possibilities into strategies. Then, under the cover of darkness, the mutiny began. It was not a grand uprising but a series of calculated strikes. Power nodes disabled, communication lines scrambled, guards incapacitated. Mara coordinated the chaos with precision born of necessity. The crew fractured into factions, those loyal to the Empire, those swayed by Mara's vision, and those caught in between. Captain Kael'vra found himself confronted not by a captive, but by a force that challenged the very foundations of his command. His attempts to reassert control were met with resistance both subtle and overt. Sezikra's ambivalence tipped toward rebellion, his allegiance fractured by Mara's influence and his own growing doubts about the Empire's ruthless path. Yelvan's diplomatic machinations turned inward, negotiating with factions on the ship in a desperate bid to salvage order. In the heart of the Erebus, Mara stood amid the turmoil, a symbol of humanity's defiance. She was no longer a prisoner but the catalyst for transformation. Her warning had not fallen on deaf ears. The Erebus was no longer just a vessel of conquest, it was a battleground of wills, a crucible where the fate of many worlds hung in the balance. And Mara, the human woman once kidnapped, had become the spark that could ignite a revolution. As the ship altered course, its trajectory aimed toward the contested border systems where Earth's forces awaited, the final confrontation loomed inevitable. The warning had been sent. The rising conflict could no longer be ignored. The Erebus shuddered violently, jolted by the sudden eruption of explosions echoing through its vast corridors. Mara stood steady amid the chaos, her breath controlled, mind razor-sharp. The mutiny that had quietly kindled beneath the surface had erupted into open conflict. The ship's once impenetrable order was now a shattered mosaic of distrust, shifting loyalties, and raw survival instincts. Captain Kael'vra barked commands with cold precision, his voice cutting through the din as he tried to rally the loyalists. But the fractures Mara had sown were deep. Officers and crew alike hesitated, some openly defying their commander. Says Zekra, the formidable reptilian whose respect for Mara had evolved into allegiance, led a contingent of rebels through the twisting metal veins of the ship, neutralizing loyalist strongholds with brutal efficiency. The multi-eyed Yelvan remained a calculating enigma, weaving through the turmoil as a mediator, attempting to broker fragile truces even as the ship's survival hung in the balance. But the tides of battle were relentless, and neither diplomacy nor force seemed capable of restoring order. Mara's plan had been simple in its essence but difficult in execution: seize control of the Erebus and redirect its immense power away from conquest toward liberation. The stakes were immense, not just for the ship's crew, but for humanity itself. The Empire's ambitions threatened to extinguish the fragile light of freedom across countless worlds. In the heart of the ship, Mara confronted Kael'Vra. The captain's expression was a mask of fury and disbelief. "You think your rebellion will change anything? You are but a single human woman." Mara met his gaze without flinching. "I'm not alone. The spirit of my people fights with me. You underestimated what it means to be human, our unpredictability, our resilience." Their battle was not just physical but ideological, a clash of wills that echoed through the metal bones of the Erebus. As alarms blared and fires flared around them, the ship itself seemed to groan under the strain of its internal war. Elsewhere, the factions Mara had united fought with desperate determination. The Loyalists clung to the Empire's doctrine, but the rebels, emboldened by Mara's leadership, pressed on with a fierce hope. SS Zekra's command was ruthless but just, blending alien strength with human ingenuity. As the battle reached its crescendo, Mara seized control of the Erebus navigation systems. With trembling fingers, she initiated a course toward Earth's defensive perimeter, signaling a shift from subjugation to alliance. The ship responded, engines roaring to life with renewed purpose. The mutiny had become a revolution. In the quiet moments before the final approach, Mara reflected on the journey that had brought her here, from captive to catalyst, from isolated prisoner to leader of a fragmented fleet. She knew the road ahead would be perilous, fraught with challenges both external and internal. But the Erebus was no longer a symbol of the Empire's dominion. It was a beacon of resistance. As the ship crossed the threshold of Earth space, its sensors detected the fleet awaiting them, human vessels poised between caution and curiosity. Communication channels crackled, and Mara stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "This is Mara, former captive aboard the Erebus. The Empire's grip has fractured. We seek alliance, not conquest. Together, we can face the greater threat looming over us all." The response was cautious but hopeful, a tentative bridge forming across the gulf of fear and misunderstanding. The reckoning had arrived, not as a battle of destruction, but as a convergence of wills determined to reshape the galaxy's future. Mara's warning had become a call to arms, her defiance a rallying cry. In the vastness of space, amid the swirling dance of stars and shadows, humanity's unpredictable spirit had forged a new destiny. And the Erebus, once a vessel of oppression, now sailed as a harbinger of hope.